It's more of that fantastical NRL goodness, with each team finally playing in their respective areas with little to no COVID restrictions. So much so that the Warriors have finally returned to New Zealand after 2 seasons of playing in Australian bubbles. Things are finally going back to normal in the NRL world. Let's see if the same can be said for the teams playing this year. After wandering through an abyss, Brisbane are finally legitimate finals contenders again. The awful 2020 season has allowed them to restructure their farm system, leading to a prospect armada. Leading from the front has been Katoni Staggs, who got himself a New South Wales call-up this year. While his Blues debut was a mixed bag, his club season has been anything but, benefiting from a Kevin Walters system which makes him the focal point on both ends of the field. Selwyn Cobbo, another exciting piece for the offense, also gaining an Origin jersey. Patrick Carrigan, TC Robati, Brendan Piakura, and Ezra Mam are all homegrown talents to be excited for in the future. The organisation has also supplemented this prospect infusion with top free agents in Adam Reynolds and Kurt Capewell. Both have been quality when healthy. But as hope comes, a little bit of drama has hit the organisation. Payne Haas wants out of his newly inked extension, and fans have been booing him at home games. The club won't let him walk, and it would be foolish for them to do so. I don't think the situation is untenable yet, but Brisbane brass need to be smart in patching up a contract dispute before it becomes a legitimate holdout. Bringing in Reece Walsh back next year fully developed helps, however, in exchange for Tamari Martin. Despite this, Red Hill is experiencing a renaissance that is about a year ahead of schedule, but a finals appearance would be a good learning experience for this young group. Sitting in the 4th spot in the same tier as some other teams, they will be tested with 6 rounds to go. This team has hit a roadblock, or 2 if you count last season. The Raiders were expected to be contenders in a bounce-back season. The only thing bouncing back is their record of mediocrity this year. They have played with plenty of injuries, with their signature free agent of last off-season and Jamal Fogarty out with a knee injury suffered in the Manly trial match. Joseph Tarpany has been unable to play in Victoria or Queensland due to his unvaccinated status and medical exemption. Nickel Clockstad has also been out since late May with a hamstring injury. And oh yeah, he's leaving at season's end as well. They've been super inconsistent in filling up the result sheet with wins, and I'm not too convinced they'd be much better with a full staff healthy and playing. They don't seem to have the depth to cover for losses in personnel, something which is all but a requirement for a team looking for a deep finals run. I have a sneaking suspicion that Ricky Stewart may be past his expiration date here, but it's going to take a fully healthy cast and another season to confirm such. He is coaching without a great deal of his elite talent, so I'll give it a pass for now, but time may be running out on this iteration of the Green Machine's window. Money can't buy happiness, and apparently it can't buy a competitive rugby league team. Yet another all-in off-season for the Bulldogs has led to the exact same result as last season, languishing near the bottom half of the league. These results caused Trent Barrett to have enough and resign as head coach just 18 months into his tenure. Let's get one thing straight. As a player's coach, you couldn't have asked more of Barrett, but at no point during his time as a head coach of either Canterbury or Manly has Trent been a tactical wunderkind. His Canterbury tenure has been full of unprepared teams for games, tactics that looked like they were drawn up by a 9-year-old playing Rugby League Live 4 on both sides of the Steeden, and a group that just looked demotivated half the time. Gus Gould doesn't have a fall guy anymore, and he needs to strike gold with his next head coaching hire to even begin to clean the stench of a losing culture, because right now it's permeating everything, and the fans are about ready to explode, with boos being a constant soundtrack to home games, especially on Good Friday. Since firing Barrett, they've been a lot more cohesive and motivated, but this is still a big setback. Start competing. Preferably soon. Well, I didn't expect this. The Sharks have fired on all cylinders this season, settling into a precarious position in the top 4. They've won 4 out of their first 5 games to start the season. This is quite a rise from last year's demolition of the remnants of the 2018 finals contenders. In one off-season, they've assembled a great foundation for a future window. Bringing in Dale Finucane to be their captain has been a boon to the second row, with Cameron McInnes providing just as much at the dummy half. Oh, but there's the main prize from the 2021 off-season. Sharks fans are now quickly building their shrines to their new deity in Nico Hines. Hines came packaged and delivered from the Melbourne Prospect Factory and has blossomed into a ready-made franchise player, firmly entrenching himself into the top 10 of points leaders this season, along with more prospects arriving like Siosifa Talakai and more on the way. Fitzgibbon is building something special down in the Shire. The Sharks have a bit more building to do, but they're on the right track. What the fuck? I thought this team was meant to be building something. This should have been the year that Gold Coast emerged into an actual contender, but they're getting stomped all over the pitch nearly every week. Brimson has already called out his teammates. They have no legitimate starting halfback or other stopgap currently, with Thomas Weaver not ready for first grade, and Holbrook is feeling his seat get hot. This team is still a project, and will need some years to figure out their identity. Management may have known that this team wasn't ready for an all-in free agency push, as developments will have to come from within. Kieran Foran won't be a bad get for the halves pairing, and it's at a pretty reasonable term and cap hit, but once again, more work must come from within. Oh, the struggles this team faces. Manly's newly formed core hasn't been fully up to scratch. The offense outside of Ruben Garrick hasn't been good, the veteran core has looked weather-beaten, and they don't have consistent depth showing up anymore. This team is treading water hard right now. If this team is going anywhere, it's on the back of Tommy Turbo, shit. What you are now hearing is the collective groans of Manly fans everywhere. Their schedule gets tougher moving forward. Even if they pull off a miracle and make it to the dance, without Turbo, they won't find much except a first round exit. Melbourne is still at the elite section of the NRL, but with a couple of concerning caveats. Firstly, some games this year have seen them look a little shaky. An absolute belting by the Panthers on Magic Round saw them look a couple steps below the reigning premiers. Secondly, losses in personnel in both the free agency and injury department. Both Pappenhausen and Coates have been out for significant amounts of time, and all of the Bromwich brothers, Kaufusi and Brandon Smith will depart this offseason. They are going through a minor transition phase in bringing in and locking up prospects like Jack Harworth and Remus Smith, along with the main core such as Welch, Olam and Hughes. Sewer Farlonger and Bronson Garlick still wait in the wings of the Melbourne prospect assembly line. There isn't much to worry about for Melbourne fans, as they have without question the best player development and prospect pool in the league, so they won't be without elite talent for too long. As for this season, they have a shot at another premiership provided everyone gets back healthy. That's what I would say, except Papi is injured again. I'm dubious to dismiss them outright, but without one of your best weapons, it's going to be an uphill battle. Such a perplexing team. I see the work this team is doing. I see the club making good moves in bringing in Nickel Klokstad to replace Reece Walsh for next season. I see the foundation forming. It's just not possible for it to come together this year. Winning 1 out of their last 9 has all but demolished any finals hopes. Some good news for the organisation has been returning home, and that game had nary a dry eye in Mount Smart Stadium as they beat the Tigers, a sentimental moment that will hopefully be the first and last time they return to New Zealand after a COVID outbreak. But it's been soured with some tough news, as Nathan Brown resigned and retired from head coaching altogether, as with Ash Taylor, who succumbed to several injuries over his professional career. I wish both men nothing but the best in their futures. Franchise legend Stacey Jones takes the mantle of guiding a budding core into a new era. I have a feeling that this hire, if successful and made permanent, will be the one that finally brings New Zealand back to relevance in the coming years. Newcastle? Are you okay? Wasn't this supposed to be the year you guys emerged into something? The structure and player development finally bringing you guys somewhere? Oh right, they have no halves pairing. The departures of Mitchell Pearce and Connor Watson haven't been beneficial for the club. Their kicking game has been carried by Kalen Ponga. The try scoring? Ponga. The running game? Ponga. Playmaking? Goddamn Ponga. This isn't sustainable. You can't just rely on one player to patch up all of your deficiencies, especially when that player is getting quite pissed with 2 years of player options coming up he actually re-signed. Newcastle, you are some of the luckiest sons of bitches this side of Uluru. Even with Redcliffe breathing down his neck, Ponga puts pen to paper on a 5x5 deal. This is your wake-up call, Knights. Your clock ticks to 2027. The entirety of the NRL world is currently shaking at this revelation. How the hell are the Cowboys this good this quickly? Well, let's take it back to the 2020-2021 offseason, where the Cowboys kept themselves out of the free agency rush, and I said that saving money for the prospects made a good deal of sense for their rebuild. Well, this season, they had the cap space to retain those prospects like Tapuai Fidow, Murray Talangi, and Ruben Cotter. They will also still have space to bring back Jordan McLean. Their team performance speaks for itself, aided by electric talents like Holmes, Talangi, and the Hammer, and established pieces like Townsend and Hess. North Queensland have found themselves an identity of rolling a very versatile group that can tackle any team that's thrown their way. This team stole the second spot, and could solidify it come season's end. Oh, I've been waiting a while to rip these underachieving sacks of shit to shreds. With one of the best halfbacks in the game, one of the best fullbacks in the game, a front and second row full of maulers, a backline filled with playmakers, and a bench filled with depth and youth, what on God's blue earth are you doing this season? Why are you the only L on the Panthers record, but lose to two of the worst teams in football in the Tigers and Bulldogs? Why the hell do you idiots look past your opponent? Oh, you think you've arrived, don't you? Sheer and utter inconsistency. You can't look at this record and tell me that it's been anything but for Parramatta. Guess what? Due to these failures, guess who snuck up behind you? Souths. They're a game back from you, with the Eagles only 2 games back. I think there's a legitimate possibility that this team misses the finals. When they do, and it's not a matter of if, it's when they fall apart, they'll be a game out of the 8 and looking back at those Tigers and Dogs games thinking, we should have had those. I don't know what is causing this unwanted arrogance out of your club, but you have 6 rounds to get it fixed. For your own sakes. What is a premiership hangover? That is the question that the Panthers have been asking the rest of the league. Another question I would like to ask, is any team going to come close to how dominant this team has been? They are miles ahead of anybody right now. How about an 8-game winning streak to start off the year? An unfortunate loss against the Eels where they capitulated to strong defensive play? Try another 8-game winning streak since then. Penrith is on an absolute tear. Everyone is staying healthy, and even their origin players missing hasn't stopped them. Their depth and coaching has been fantastic, with more elite prospects on the way, despite departures of quality players to come this offseason. There is no reason to think that this team will be falling off either this year or in the years to come. With most of the core still together, they are rightfully the favourites to repeat, but they have to stay focused. Plenty can happen in the next month and change, and as they say in the NHL, but is very true for the NRL, the regular season doesn't mean shit. The Souths are going through a small transition phase of their own. Losing the franchise heartbeat in Adam Reynolds last offseason has left a gaping hole in the halfback position. Lachlan Ilias has been developing, but not quickly enough for Souths to be in the cream of the crop so far this season. Latrell was also out for 10 weeks and has only recently come back in a dominating performance against the Eels. There was also speculation around his involvement in State of Origin 3, but cooler heads prevailed and Latrell pulled himself out of selection for New South Wales. Souths need him healthy and playing if they are any shot of staying within the 8. They don't have the offensive firepower or depth to cover for his loss. They are a game back from Para, and that win gave them a tiebreaker over the Eels. They could well push up to 6 if all goes well. They have a tough road ahead, but if they can pull off tough wins against good opponents, it might push them to where they want to be. St. George is starting to have some progression in their rebuild. There are pieces here. Cody Ramsey, Francis Molo, Jack Bird staying healthy, and Ben Hunt finally playing up to his contract at Dally M form. Their good run of form over the past 2 months put them in the 8 temporarily, with other results from teams going their way, until it didn't, catapulting them back to 11th. But they're missing that extra oomph to get them higher in the standings. Where do they get it from? The consensus has been that Zach Lomax is the epitome of mercurial, and looking at his base statistics plus the eye test, I'd be inclined to agree. At the time of writing, he currently leads the entire league in handling errors, is joint first in total errors, while only scoring 4 tries in 15 appearances. Too many times where he's just looked lost on the field this year. If he's not at optimal form, the Dragons go nowhere even if they slip into the 8. They've got a rather easy schedule against teams that they're equal to or superior to. So how do they mess it up? I give it 7-1 odds they lose to the Titans. As a fan, I've seen the writing on the wall for a while now. That 2021 finals loss to Manly was merely the final nail in the coffin. It didn't look like it at first. They won 4 out of their first 6, beating legit opponents. But then the cold reality of inconsistency throughout the latter half of April hit. And then they proceeded to keel over in June and early July with 4 straight losses. This past month was all but a death blow to any finals chances. It's not all bad. Verrill shows good potential, Joey Manu has been incredible, Joseph Suwali has generational promise, and the club is bringing in Brandon Smith next season. But I don't know if it's going to be enough for a deep run in 2023. They will need to develop, and I'd say they would be in a more beneficial situation to develop gradually. This season for the Orange and Black has been a triangle of hilarities for the rest of the league. Let's start off with having 5 listed captains. You heard that right. 5. It continued as everybody wondered and has continued to wonder when Luke Brooks is going to run from this car crash of an organisation screaming. And rounded off with the biggest tragedy in football this season, poor Michael Maguire was unceremoniously thrown under the bus after a 3-8 start to the season. You get quite possibly the biggest joke in the league. It gets worse as time goes on. They were beaten by the Panthers, who rested all 7 of their origin starters. No, Brett, the Tigers franchise doesn't deserve respect in their current form. All of this topped off with the uncertainty that Isaiah Papali'i might back out of his move next season, and you get a Sunday of shit. Fitting for what will be a 10th straight season of missing the finals. This has sent the organization into desperation mode in hiring Benji Marshall as their next head coach. 5 years for a guy with no experience coaching? Yeah, this organization has learnt nothing.